In the previous episode, Kang Bit-na, a judge who was wrongfully sent to hell for judging murderers, was forced to become a demon judge on Earth. She was tasked with judging 10 unforgivable sinners, including her former fiancé, Moon Jong-joon. In this episode continue with, in order to achieve her goals quickly, she stabbed Han Da-eun to death. While she celebrated completing her task, many spiders suddenly appeared on the floor and a strong wind blew. The ruler of hell, Baal, appeared and scolded her for wrongly judging an innocent person. He declared that Han Da-eun would be resurrected, and her punishment would now double from killing 10 sinners to 20. Non-compliance meant death. After issuing his command, Baal left. The blood on Han Da-eun quickly vanished, and he opened his eyes to check his wound, only to find no trace of injury on his abdomen. Han Da-eun, shocked by his resurrection, demanded to know who Kang Bit-na really was. Kang Bit-na willingly let herself be arrested. The two returned to the police station where Han Da-eun recounted being stabbed and resurrected. But his team leader and colleagues disbelieved the strange occurrence, suspecting he had hallucinated while drunk. Furthermore, they questioned why Kang Bit-na would handcuff herself if she had committed murder. Taking advantage of the situation, Kang Bit-na claimed innocence, suggesting that Han Da-eun enjoyed such scenarios. The team leader ordered Kang Bit-na's handcuffs removed and requested she not hold Han Da-eun accountable. Pretending to be magnanimous, Kang Bit-na advised Han Da-eun to avoid getting drunk, turning the victim into the perpetrator. Han Da-eun felt deeply wronged while Kang Bit-na confidently left the police station. Complaining to her assistant, Kang Bit-na lamented the difficulty of killing 20 criminals in a year. Blaming her assistant for the bad idea of targeting Han Da-eun. They discussed their next steps. Suddenly, a waiter revealed his identity as the real Kang Bit-na, who had been wrongly judged due to a work mishap, and was also punished by Baal to assist Kang Bit-na on Earth. Now with 2 helpers, the female assistant asked Kang Bit-na how they should handle Han Da-eun, who knew their secret. Kang Bit-na felt they would no longer cross paths, but her assistant suggested a clean resolution. Meanwhile, Han Da-eun visited the hospital for a checkup and was found to be very healthy. The doctor suspected his resurrection story was a delusion caused by intoxication or sleepiness. No one believed his story. Frustrated, Han Da-eun hadn't left the hospital when Kang Bit-na approached him. He questioned Kang Bit-na about her true identity. She confessed to being a demon from hell, inhabiting the body of Kang Bit-na, a judge who died 3 months ago. After revealing this, she pulled out a blade from hell, warned Han Da-eun to treat the incident as a drunken breakdown, and threatened to kill him if he spread the story again. After speaking, Kang Bit-na drove away. That night, Han Da-eun researched Kang Bit-na and demons, unsure whether to believe her. This also reminded him of a past incident. As a child, he ran home excited to give his parents a present, but arrived to find them dead in a bloodied room with a black-clothed, axe-wielding man approaching him. Later, Han Da-eun reported the murderer's details to the police. The police thought his story differed from before and didn't believe the lying child. Kang Bit-na had just complained that no matter how much he spoke, no one would believe him, which stung his sensitive heart and left him feeling helplessly sad. A family of 3 was driving when the child smelled a foul odor. The mother concluded it was from her intoxicated husband. Suddenly, the car plunged straight into the sea. The husband woke up in shock, unable to unbuckle his seatbelt. He urged his wife to take their son and escape first. The wife and son managed to swim to shore through the sunroof, but when she returned to save her husband, the sunroof had closed and the car sank, with her unable to rescue him. After the husband's death, his mother sued her daughter-in-law, loudly fighting for custody of her grandson and refusing to let him live with his stepmother. Compared to the loud and defiant grandmother, the grieving stepmother appeared innocent. However, when Kang Bit-na supported the stepmother, the forcefully removed grandmother revealed shocking news. Her son had bought a substantial life insurance policy, and she accused the stepmother of killing him for the insurance money. Kang Bit-na had to reassess both women's statements. To uncover the truth, she visited the stepmother's school. The stepmother explained she was her son's teacher and took extra care of him because he lacked a mother's presence. This care led to love with the child's father, and they had a happy marriage until his accidental death. Kang Bit-na wondered why the stepmother insisted on raising a child with no blood relation. The stepmother answered that the grandmother had abandoned her husband when he was 5 and only returned after 30 years, often asking for money, and now aiming for the life insurance meant for her grandson. She could not leave the child with someone only interested in the insurance. The stepmother pleaded for Kang Bit-na's help. But Kang Bit-na, trusting facts over tears, decided to investigate the grandmother's house early at 5 in the morning to avoid Han Da-an, who was trailing her. Just as she reached the building, she encountered Han Da-an, who had decided to closely monitor her to understand her identity. At the grandmother's house, the story contradicted the stepmother's. She suspected the stepmother of killing her son for insurance money because she saw her being overly intimate with another man at the son's funeral. Worse, she left her grandson alone at home in a messy house, hungry. The little boy told Kang Bit-na his grandmother was a good person and showed her his drawing. From the drawing, Kang Bit-na saw signs that the boy was threatened and afraid to tell the truth. She promised to protect him and encouraged him to reveal what he knew. The boy then recounted that on the night of the murder, he saw his stepmother apply glue to his father's seatbelt and deliberately drive into the sea. After they reached the shore, he begged her to save his father. But she cruelly closed the sunroof with a remote control, dooming his father's chance of escape. Afterwards, the stepmother warned him that if he dared to tell anyone about the incident, she would kill his grandmother. Han Dan comforted the crying boy, embracing him. He worried that no one would believe the boy's testimony and that they wouldn't be able to convict the stepmother, just as the police had not believed his testimony years ago. Kang Bit-na stated that she would believe the boy. Although she was annoyed by Han Dan's persistence, she admitted she would believe everything he said if he appeared before her as a child. Kang Bit-na's words cleared the gloom in Han Dan's heart, giving him the trust he had lacked for years, and moved him to tears as he cried out his past grievances. When the case was reopened, Kang Bit-na declared the charges against the grandmother by the stepmother as unfounded and gave the grandmother a suspended sentence. However, she awarded the stepmother custody of the boy. The grandmother could not bear to see her grandson taken away by the malicious woman. Even when the stepmother brought the police to take the boy, the grandmother refused to hand him over. To deal with the grandmother, the stepmother arranged for an elderly man to pass by the boy as he left school. The kind-hearted boy helped the old man home. Out of gratitude, the old man gave the boy a drink, advising that it was good for elderly people's vitality. The dutiful boy gave the drink to his grandmother at home, unaware that the stepmother had laced it with sleeping pills. After the grandmother fell asleep, the stepmother forcibly took the boy away. At that moment, the stepmother received a threatening phone call, claiming that the caller had evidence of her killing her husband. They demanded she come to the site of her husband's death if she did not want the evidence handed over to the police. Fearing the exposure of the truth, the stepmother hurried to the location. Meanwhile, the boy quickly dressed and ran to a public phone booth to call Han Daeon, who soon arrived to rescue him. Meanwhile, at the seaside, the stepmother saw a car drive up from the water and stop in front of her. Kang Bit-na emerged from the car and confronted the stepmother with a blade, demanding she admit to killing her husband. The stepmother tried to argue but Kang Bit-na slapped her, demanding she confess what she had applied to the seatbelt. Still defiant, the stepmother denied everything, prompting Kang Bit-na to slap her again, throwing her several meters away and lifting her into the air. Choking, the stepmother finally admitted she had used a water-soluble adhesive on the seatbelt. Kang Bit-na got her answer and threw the stepmother forcefully. Opening her eyes, the stepmother found herself in a car, facing the same scenario as her husband's death. As the car sank, she screamed in terror, unable to open her glued seatbelt, while Kang Bit-na intentionally closed the sunroof. Like her husband, she frantically looked for an exit, but ultimately suffocated and drowned like her husband had. When the stepmother opened her eyes again, she realized she hadn't died, but had come up from the water to the ground. She desperately begged Kang Bit-na to spare her. Kang Bit-na questioned her again about the murder of her former husband. The stepmother tried to argue that her husband's death was an accident. Kang Bit-na threw her against a vending machine, demanding she reveal the entire truth about killing her former husband and the boy's father. The stepmother admitted she married her old husband for money. Seeing her ex-husband every day disgusted her. To inherit his apartment, she poisoned his eyes with a drug in water. Her husband enjoyed hiking. Pretending to help him, she led him to a cliff while hiking. She used the pretext of taking a photo to bring him to the edge and pushed him off when he was unaware, simulating an accidental fall. Being a teacher, the police easily believed her, and no one ever suspected her. However, her greed was too great. After securing the apartment and insurance money, she felt it wasn't enough and targeted her current husband, easily becoming the boy's stepmother due to her status as a teacher. She felt guilty and intended to take good care of the child, but she was too cruel and never showed him any maternal love. Kang Bit-na couldn't stand listening anymore and pinned her against a vending machine, beating her up. Then she activated Hell's Eye, allowing the stepmother to enter her world. Kang Bit-na took the stepmother to the mountain where she had killed her ex-husband. After making her experience the fear of near death, she let go, pushing the stepmother off the cliff. The stepmother woke up in bed. Kang Bit-na didn't give her a chance to react and smothered her with a pillow, making it hard for her to breathe. Finally, Kang Bit-na forced her to drink a liquid that blinded her, making her experience what she did to her ex-husband. After all the punishments, Kang Bit-na ended the stepmother's life with a blade and marked her forehead with the Hell's brand. The vending machine transformed into a gateway to hell, and demons devoured the stepmother's soul. An assistant summoned Hell's minions to clean up and asked if they should leave the body in the street as before. This time, Kang Bit-na wanted something different and ordered the body be disposed of elsewhere. During the boy's case, Han Da-eun saw Kang Bit-na's kindness. Although he still resented her, he decided not to bother her anymore. Both would perform their duties without interfering with each other. This was what Kang Bit-na wanted, but when Han Da-eun actually did it, she found it boring. He was the person she found interesting on Earth. Before returning to Hell, she wanted to maintain this amusement. To get Han Da-eun to engage with her again, she consulted a colleague who suggested she might be in love. Interested in someone is the start of liking them. Kang Bit-na didn't understand what liking meant, but she suddenly remembered Han Da-eun's tearful face, feeling something unusual. She didn't want to delve into whether demons have human emotions. To make Han Da-eun approach her, she had the body thrown at the police station. The police quickly found the body with the same markings and fatal wound as the previous case. Han Da-eun suspected Kang Bit-na, but had no proof. Kang Bit-na waited for him with her phone, but ended up meeting someone else. Assemblyman Young invited her to dinner at his home. Unable to refuse, she attended and ate without hesitation. Thinking of how Han Da-eun kept investigating her origins, she couldn't help but ask about her parents and why she hadn't seen them since waking up 6 months ago. Assemblyman Young and others thought she had amnesia and had forgotten her past. They told her that her parents had emigrated to Argentina. Her brother had opened a Japanese restaurant there. Essentially, her parents had no relation to her anymore, and the distance meant there was no need to meet. Kang Bit-na was very happy. Assemblyman Young revealed why he had invited Kang Bit-na. One of his sons was obsessed with advancing his career while the other was quite useless. Thus, he wanted Kang Bit-na to enter politics and eventually succeed him. Kang Bit-na left with a packed meal. Young Son-ho, the second son of Assemblyman Young, who had not appeared before, watched her from upstairs. The next day, Kang Bit-na finally met Han Da-eun, who had been looking for her. It turned out that Han Da-eun found a crushed can at the crime scene, shaped just like the one Kang Bit-na had crushed in front of him. He questioned her about any connection to the two victims. Naturally, Kang Bit-na denied it and reminded him to bring evidence if he wanted to accuse her. Kang Bit-na left the police station and forcefully got into Han Da-eun's car, ordering him to take her home. On the way, she told Han Da-eun about the current situation of her family. Previously, Han Da-eun had always asked about this, but now found it meaningless. Kang Bit-na was dissatisfied with Han Da-eun's reaction and demanded he show the same curiosity as before. However, Han Da-eun kept his word and said he would no longer pester her about her affairs. The next day, Kang Bit-na received a letter from the boy containing only a portrait of her. Kang Bit-na criticized the drawing as ugly, but was secretly pleased. To comfort the boy, she ordered her assistant to find a friend in heaven. Soon the postman delivered a letter to the boy. Opening the letter, the boy cried. It was from his parents in heaven, hoping he would grow up well. After reading the letter, the boy noticed the postman uncle had suddenly disappeared, but the letter gave him courage to live bravely. Kang Bit-na was still troubled by Han Da-eun's disinterest in her. Suddenly, someone knocked on her door. Opening it, she saw Han Da-on had moved across the hall, preparing to watch her closely. Kang Bit-na felt happy, but suddenly felt a sharp pain in her chest and fainted into Han Da-on's arms. Kang Bit-na's heart raced and she fainted due to Han Da-on's arrival. Han Da-on quickly took her to the hospital.